We welcome you tonight to tonight's event hosted by TikTok and National PTA and appreciate you joining in this important conversation. My name is Carrie Neill and I am National PTA's Connected Ambassador. And tonight we have a host of panel of experts that will help you understand the importance of the conversations families are having together about digital safety, and we'll share some strategies and resources that will support you in talking with your teens. I'm so excited to be joined on the panel by Kristelle Lavallee, a senior content strategist for Digital Wellness Lab at Boston Children's Hospital, and Billy Perry, a TikTok creator focused on creating dad content. Thank you both so much for being here, and to TikTok for allowing me to participate on this incredible panel. Digital citizenship is extremely important at National PTA. We know that we must make sure our kids are safe and great citizens in the world, but also online as well. And that's why partnerships like these with TikTok and conversations just like this one are so important. I am now very pleased to introduce our session moderator, Tracy Elizabeth, the minor safety policy lead at TikTok, who's going to kick off this session. Tracy.
Thank you so much, Carrie, and hello, everybody. I am so delighted to be here today. We've got parents, educators, youth safety advocates from all around the country. I think there might even be some of my former colleagues from when I was a school teacher in South Carolina here, some of my professors from when I was a grad student. So I'm incredibly proud to be here today to talk about this. I am Tracy Elizabeth. I oversee the minor safety policies in addition to other issue categories like harassment and bullying at TikTok. And as a mother, as an educator, as a researcher, I care so deeply about the impact of technology and media on our teens. And I know that oftentimes caregivers who try to have conversations with their teens about taboo or what can be perceived to be sensitive topics can find those talks to be incredibly challenging. How do you start? How do you push the conversation forward? How do you know when it's time to just stop and try again another time? Adults can find these conversations awkward, and it can be tough to connect with young people in an authentic way. And myself, as an academic who specializes in prevention science, I know how important it is to also consider the layers of relationships in a teen's life. So we think about the teen as an individual, and then their peer group, right? Their family, their community, the greater society. And what we know is that the common thread of what can be incredibly impactful to teens is a caring adult in their life. So today, we've got this brilliant panel of adults who get teens, and they get teens from different perspectives. So we're going to cover a bunch of different topics and share some helpful tips on how to connect with teens. Before we do that, I want to just take a few minutes to share some of the safety resources that TikTok has in place. Okay, so yes, it starts on TikTok, and some of you might be wondering, what is TikTok? That's okay to wonder it. What I like to describe it as is like they're micro movies, or like little short like videos, right? Like 15 to 60 seconds long, little visual stories. And TikTok is a place where you can either create and be a creator, or you can be a consumer. I do know that as many educators say, it can sometimes be easier to show than to tell. So we're going to kick this off by showing a couple of TikToks. One by Billy Visco, our dad creator extraordinaire here today. And then another fun TikTok that renewed our nation's love for feta pasta. So if y'all don't mind.
I am making the viral feta cheese and tomato pasta that is so popular. Feta cheese sold out in Finland. All you have to do is add tomatoes, olive oil, garlic, salt, and pepper to a baking dish with some feta cheese. Add some olive oil on top with some oregano and then some lemon zest, and we're gonna bake at 400. Now you're gonna add fresh basil on top, mix it all together, and add in your favorite type of pasta. Seriously, look how good this looks. I am making the viral feta cheese and tomato pasta.
Vacation with my boyfriend.
Ooh.
That's a good question. I tell you what, I'm not going to say yes, and I'm not going to say no, but here's what we're going to do. I'll call his parents up, invite them over, shoot the Final Fours tonight. We'll watch the games. We'll have dinner. I'll talk about the vacation, and then we'll make a decision from there. That fair?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Love you.
Love you.
I love that. Billy, you're so smart and your daughter is so polite. We have, okay, so I hope you got a taste for what TikTok is all about. And at TikTok, we work with a whole host of different youth safety partners, youth safety organizations, one of whom we work quite closely with is the National PTA, who is our host today. Thank you so much to the National PTA. We also work with tech experts like those at the Digital Wellness Lab, Common Sense Networks. We work with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and many other organizations. These organizations mean so much to us. We take their feedback and their expertise very seriously, and we use that feedback to create educational programming for parents and for teens, and we use that feedback to develop important features in guardrails in our app to protect our younger users. And I myself am a developmental psychologist, and at TikTok, I'm proud of the ways that we think about the developmental stages of our youth. What this means is that we contemplate how an adolescent or a teenager transitions from childhood into adulthood. And in practice, we know that teens experience TikTok differently than adults. We also know that younger teens experience TikTok differently than older teens. So we hold this developmental lens in mind in order to create age-appropriate safety features that are built into our platform to help ensure the safety of teens as they grow into adults while using TikTok. We've got many, many features, but just to name a couple of them for you all, for those teens who are under the age of 16, their accounts are set to private by default. They don't have access to direct messaging, nor can they host a live stream. And so in addition to those built-in safeguards, we've long had parental controls within TikTok. And what a parental control or a feature that I'm particularly proud of is our family pairing feature. And what family pairing is it's a way that parents, caregivers can connect their individual TikTok account to their teens account. So you can connect your personal account to your teens account. And then through that pairing or through that linking, you can manually adjust safety settings or privacy settings on behalf of your teen. You can adjust things like screen time limits. You could opt your teen into a restricted mode, and you can do things like decide who can view your teen's content. Is it their friends? Is it no one? Is it everyone? So these tools are intended to empower families to make decisions for what's best and most comfortable for the safety of your unique teen. Okay, so speaking of safety, a topic that I want to speak just a little bit about is online challenges and hoaxes. Challenges are actually not something new. We just have a new digital space within the ways in which challenges can be socialized. So think about dares that you yourself did as a teen, or like silly or lighthearted competitions that you may have had. One example that I can think of personally is that when I was a teenager, we would dare each other to see like how many saltines can you eat without drinking water. I don't know if you've done it, but your mouth gets dry. So these challenges involve someone recording themselves doing something that they perceive to be difficult and then challenging others to see if they can do the same thing. Most of those challenges, like the saltines one that I talked about, most of them are safe and they're fun, and they can be found all over the internet. Some challenges are what we call hoaxes, and hoaxes are slightly different. They are intentional lies that are planted to trick people into believing something that isn't true. And the purpose of a hoax is to spread fear and to spread panic. Many times they're related to sexual assault, suicide, or self-harm. Challenges and hoaxes are not unique to any individual platform, yet the effects of these, they influence or they affect all of us. They're felt by all of us. And that's why at TikTok, we very recently conducted research to learn about the perceptions of online challenges. We wanted to understand how we might develop effective prevention strategies to better support our teens, our parents, and our educators who are navigating these digital spaces. And there are some statistics that you can see here on the screen, but just to call out a couple, 0.3%. So this means less than 1% of teens said that they had taken part in a challenge that they considered to be very dangerous. And then of that small percent, of that 0.3%, those teens said that they really want more information. They're curious, and what they want to know is how far is too far, and how can they make that determination when it comes to an online challenge. And when it comes to hoaxes, we know that it can be incredibly difficult to determine the truth, determine the difference between the truth and a falsehood. And a lot of well-intentioned folks have this instinct to share warnings when they see a hoax, or if they see something dangerous. They want to share that to warn others. What our research found is that sharing can actually have quite a negative effect on teens' mental health. So you'll see in a coming slide that one of our recommendations is to absolutely don't share. Okay, so everyone here, we're here because we share the love for teenagers, and so it's not really going to be that surprising to us to say teenagers are risk takers, right? They're pushing boundaries. They want to see what their limits are, and this is incredibly normal when it comes to a developing teen, an adolescent who's developing into an adult. It is just the phase of risk-taking and curiosity. With that in mind, we developed a guide that is now hosted within our safety center to educate our community about online challenges and the steps that one can take to assess the level of risk, and then also how to report that content to us. And again, we've worked with prevention scientists, we worked with a pediatrician. We really looked at what are best evidence-based practices in interventions that speak to teens in order to develop resources like this one. So this tip, or this guide, is our Stop, Think, Decide, Act. And what this means is stop, take a deep breath, think. Is it safe? Is it real? What did I just see? And if you're not sure, check with a trusted adult. Decide. If it's risky or if it's harmful, don't repeat it. Don't do it. And again, if you're not sure, don't share it, please. And you can check with a trusted adult. And then act. Act is one where we say, report anything that you believe might violate our community guidelines. You can just long press. It's very easy to report something on TikTok. You can long press on the video with your finger. I don't know if you can see my hand through this. And then a menu will pop up and it'll ask you a couple of, it'll give you options for why you're reporting, or you can just say, this is not for me, it's not comfortable. So please report anything that you perceive to be dangerous or that makes you uncomfortable. Okay, I'm going to show you more videos in just a second, but I want to be very, very clear. Videos that show dangerous or illegal activities are absolutely not allowed on TikTok. They're not. We don't want it there. Our moderation teams work swiftly to remove content that violate our guidelines. And in an effort to continue to support our community, we've implemented some changes on our platform that, again, are based in prevention science and with consultation with an adolescent development expert. In addition to new banners that pop up when someone searches for something dangerous on our platform, or new labels on videos that are performed by professionals, we've partnered with creators across the world to visually demonstrate like when it's a good time to stop, think, decide, and act. And so we're really excited and proud of this intervention effort. And I want to go ahead and show you an example of one.
Do y'all want to see me do something really, really dangerous? Because y'all know I don't post this type of content on my platform. Hold up. I cannot believe y'all actually thought I was about to hurt myself for some views. Listen, before you do anything that you see online, you need to think about whether it's safe or not. Here are 4 things that you should do before you post that video. First, you need to stop, slow down, and think about the risk. Ask yourself this, self, girl, what? What could go wrong if I post this video? Well, not only would you hurt yourself, but you can also hurt the other users on TikTok. Thank you, self. Thank you. Then you're going to decide if it's safe or not. If you're unsure, it's not even worth it. Go ahead and delete it. Delete it! And if you're scrolling down your For You page and you see somebody doing something unsafe, act on it like this. Oh, report. It's anonymous. Ain't nobody gonna know. Stay safe out here.
I love her. I adore that. Okay, I just want to unpack a little bit of what you saw to illustrate like why we believe, based on evidence from prevention science, that this is an effective method. And she has like a really engaging affect, right? Like she's cool. She seems like someone you'd want to talk to. You might take her seriously. She's funny. And she also was pretty witty, right? Like there were a couple moments where she's like, you think I'm going to do something dangerous to myself in order to get likes? No, that's a very effective way to talk to a young person. And I also like how she names it as dangerous. She doesn't shy around from it. She's very blunt and direct. Dangerous, not for me. And then she offers tips on what to do. Report it, right? Take a deep breath, stop and think. So this is just one of many videos that we've recently produced and are excited to share with the world. And I hope that from me sharing all of this, that it has been worth your time and worth your while, and that you've learned more about TikTok and that you know about all of the authentic care and hearts and humans and love that we at TikTok put into ensuring that youth or people of all ages can create and learn and have fun on our platform. If I talked too fast or I skipped something, or if you're curious more about something else, we're going to follow up after this with a toolkit of resources and more information about what you can access within TikTok, and then also more information about our latest research. And so I'm so excited to turn it over to our panelists. I'm sure they're very eager to start talking. And I'm going to start with a question for Kristelle at the Digital Wellness Lab to help us set the stage for our discussion. Hi, Kristelle. Thank you for being here. Okay, Kristelle, can you help our audience better understand teens' brains and how they develop during adolescence? How do they approach critical thinking? How do they assess potentially dangerous online content?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think a question that a lot of parents of adolescents have. It's one that we get fairly often at the lab. And just to take it back for a step, adolescence is an awesome time of development. It's a time when teens are really figuring out exactly who they are. So they're trying on different senses of self, different senses of identity, and they're doing all of this simultaneously with moving away from their parents. So they're really trying to branch out and discover who they are. It's also a time of rapid brain development as well. So the part of our brain, that prefrontal cortex, which is involved in kind of impulse control or self-control, it's also involved in long-term decision-making. That part of the brain actually isn't fully developed until around age 25. So during adolescence, you can imagine there's a lot of development happening there. Also during adolescence, again, we have a lot going on in the brain. There's a part of the brain called the ventral striatum, and that's really, that just lights up during adolescence. So that's really involved in decision making, especially when it comes to rewards. And with adolescents, one of the biggest rewards that you can give a teen is actually a sense of pure belonging. They want to be a part of the group. They want to be accepted. So now when we take that back and we think about, okay, critical decision-making or engagement in risk-taking behaviors, or even just consumption of that kind of content, it makes a lot of sense because they're trying to figure out, okay, what type of person am I, but also what type of people are my peers? So they're consuming all of this content, learning about other human behaviors, and also wanting to be accepted into that peer group. So they might engage with that content or that challenge, things like that. And I think it's really important. I'm so glad that you asked this question, Tracy, because I think it's really important for us as adults, and especially for parents or guardians or caregivers, to kind of think about it this way, because I think oftentimes we look at teens' behaviors, or, why do they spend so much time kind of consuming this risky content? And we think it's irrational, or it's impulsive, or it just, there's no through line. But there actually is a really logical through line for teens coming to this content. They're just using the parts of their brains that they have right now in the space of development that they're in right now. So I guess all of that to say is it's completely developmentally normal for them to be not only engaging in these types of behaviors, but also consuming this type of content too.
I'm wondering from Billy as a dad, as having teens, how does that strike you, resonate with you? Oh, we might not. Oh, you're muted. Ha ha, Zoom. That's like every meeting.
Right? Can you hear me now? We use, all right. I love what my platform is about, is giving kids a voice. Just like she said, they want to be so involved. They want to feel a part of something. That's what we do. We give the kids a voice and want to make home that safe place where it starts. Respect, love, communication. Those are the three things you will hear us preach on over and over and over and over, and just giving the kids a voice. So I love I knew the frontal lobe. I'm just glad to hear all the different parts now. That's really cool, because I knew the frontal lobe took a while to develop, but that was really good.
I love his positivity. So Kristelle, I think this is absolutely fascinating. And then I think to add to the complexity of being an adolescent, right? Like that's already quite complex. To add to that, now we're in a place where we're trying to make it through a global pandemic. And Carrie, maybe I may ask you, but I'm just wondering, given these unprecedented challenges and how teens are trying to navigate this world during this pandemic, how have you seen this manifest in schools? And what role have you seen or sensed that social media and technology are playing into that?
Well, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone here or any parent or caregiver out there that during the pandemic, technology use dramatically increased. I mean, some just for entertainment because you couldn't really go anywhere. And then some because that's how you were receiving your education, right? And that exposure to those new apps so that you could go to school and still learn. And so adults and kids from all ages, all the way down to 4 and 5 years old, have been using technology to stay connected to their teachers, friends, families, communities, and it's a new normal. There's an opportunity for us to observe and learn from what changes have happened because of the pandemic, but also because of the advances that some of the apps and technology have provided for us. And they're really great opportunities to bring out creative sides and to tap into a different part of yourself that you might not have discovered without that opportunity. And so it's just a new way to learn new skills. And I know sometimes it's uncomfortable for parents when you're faced with a subject that maybe your teen might know a little more than you about. And so I think it's important to be open to that learning. And then platforms and apps have also helped teens just mobilize and activate around really important issues that they're passionate about, both absorbing those issues and learning about them, and then actually giving them a platform to share their viewpoint and their voice. And then they're also able to find a community, maybe not geologically right close to them, but a community that they really feel at home with and connected with, and a sense of belonging that they might not have ever had access to. And so I just think that those are really amazing positives to focus on when you're thinking about this sudden surge in technology use.
Kristelle, I didn't know if you like unmuted. You know, an awkward tip that I learned from like psychology is that if you just have these long pauses, right? You just pause for like 6 seconds. Someone else jumps in, they have something to say. So I just want to give space. You will jump in if you have anything to respond with. I know, Billy, as well, that you've got teens at home. So how has the pandemic affected your teens, if you feel comfortable sharing?
Absolutely. Pre-pandemic, we set the tone for a peaceful house. You know, that was such a, you know, you hear some horrific stories about, you know, I mean, it's really scary that some kids did have to stay home and with no place to go. And that was one thing that we really prided ourselves. We were so glad that we had this peaceful, and I just made a video today on TikTok about a safe place. Your home should be your safe place. And so, you know, it was nothing for us to all be locked down together. It was so cool to see our kids even, I mean, they were close as it is. We have 3 kids, 18-year-old son, 17-year-old daughter, 17-year-old tomorrow. So I'm just going to go ahead and call her that. And then 13-year-old daughter. So to see them, you know, just thrive together, and even on social media, having each other's backs, you know, navigating through some of the new stuff. I mean, you know, they really got introduced to, you know, several different platforms, and for them to walk each other through it and to just, you know, have each other's backs, that was so important. And just the importance of, you know, as a family, as a whole, just creating that safe place. And so it's been really cool to see, even on our virtual days that we still have. So.
I love that. Your home to be your safe place. I'm going to switch gears in just a second, but before I do, I just want to know, does anybody else on the panel, like, is there anything more you want to say or share when it comes to teens' perspectives, their motivations?
I'll say something real. Be your team's cheerleader. Be that, like you said, teens thrive on positivity. And, you know, I thrive. Some people are like, man, how do you have so much energy? Well, I'm just fired up about life. I don't know. I mean, but when you're fired up about life, it really does feed off, you know, on your team, on your kids. I mean, it just really does. I can't say enough about being positive and excited. And we used to say that all the time when the kids were growing up, when they were real small, get fired up and excited. That was our thing when they were growing up. So just.
Yeah, I just want to +1 both what Carrie and Billy said. I don't know that I have that much to add. I will also just say that something that we found from the research that we did at the Digital Wellness Lab that I think was also just really heartening, and kind of what Carrie was talking about with, you know, this huge surge in everybody was online. We were all thrust online, and social media really became teens' lifeline to see, you know, what their friends were doing, what their families were doing from afar. It really became it was already a source of connection, but it became all the more important when we were kind of in lockdowns. That said, something that we found across the country, across the United States, was that because of what Billy was noting with families being in lockdown, parents could actually be more a part of their child's online experiences. And it gave them a window into saying, hey, what are you doing on your phone? Like, what are you, who are you connecting with? So we saw families across the board becoming more and more involved in their child's social media presence, in their child's online life too. And I know that this conversation is really about difficult conversations and having those with your teens. And I think the pandemic pandemic helped facilitate those in a way, because we were all in this kind of same space and getting to see those activities. So I think that was kind of a nice silver lining to the pandemic that we experienced. And I think it's a lesson that we really want to take with us as we come out of the pandemic too, is that we have to have these conversations, because now we're all well aware of how much we're using these technologies and how important and integral they really are in the lives, especially of our teens.
Mm-hmm. I want to, like, in classroom, you know, it's like give each other snacks, like snacks, yes. And one thing, just to like piggyback off that a little bit, is that when families ask me about digital safety, right, talking with their teens, what are best practices, one thing that I love to say, and I do it myself as a mom, is use the apps that your kids or your teens are using. Set up a TikTok account, get to know it, learn and understand why it's so appealing. Ask your teen, like, what do you like to watch? What do you see? Learn about the safety features and talk about those safety features together. Educate your teen, let your teen educate you. And I think that just demystifying some of these online spaces is just half the battle towards getting to a comfortable place. And I know that teens like to feel a strong sense of autonomy, right? Like they're fleshing out their independence, they're fleshing out who their identities and who they're going to be. So I want to talk for a second about the delicate balance between autonomy and safety. And Billy, I'm going to put you on the spot and just ask you, like, how have you approached balancing autonomy and safety with your teens?
We've got several videos on this, so it's a subject that's awesome for me. A lot of you guys have probably seen them, but and like that one at the beginning. But I do allow my kids to date, and that is, and one of those reasons is so I can guide them through those tough moments, so they know the difference between a healthy relationship and a toxic relationship. Struggles are going to come up, things are going to come up, and we started this way back when. One of my things is what works in my house might not work in yours. And one of the reasons it works in ours is because we started this when they were really, really small. So we've had this trust building and this communication building and respect building and all that building. And to say that, we do give our kids a little bit more freedom than some people might feel comfortable with. But, I got two of them getting ready to go off to college. And if I don't give them a sense of freedom, what are they going to do when they go off to college? It's so we really pride ourselves on, and we use the funnel method. And if you're not familiar with that, what that is, hey, the more they can handle, the more we give them. If we need to rein it back, that funnel gets a little bit smaller. So, but if they can handle it, that funnel gets bigger, their freedom gets bigger, our trust gets bigger. And they earn that right to do more things. And so that is just so important to us, that they can thrive as little adults, even though they're living in our house. So that's my thoughts on that.
Billy, I really like that funnel method. I like that. I love that analogy. And
how big? I mean, it can fluctuate. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I really like that. I think it's also something, because I am a consumer of your content, Billy, and something that I've noticed that I think pairs really well with a lot of the research too, is that you have this open, honest, transparent dialogue with your kids. And I think that is so crucial. So instead of, a child thinking like, oh, I'm being policed on this platform, or, oh, like this is my space, not theirs, just starting that open, honest dialogue when they're young. So Tracy was talking about getting to know the platforms that the child is on. And we're always pushing for, as soon as they join, you join, you're right there with them, so that, there isn't a space that you aren't there as the parent, as the guardian who loves them, and be honest about that, talk about it. That's so important and so crucial. If you see something that they've posted that you're just unsure of, ask them why they posted it. Why did they find that interesting? Or what was it about that picture that they felt the need to share? Things like that. Don't, kind of take the phone, snoop on the phone. It's like, no, I'm on these platforms with you. I am your parent in all of these spaces. And I think that's so crucial. And I just really love how you kind of share with parents how to have those conversations and also demonstrate it with your own kids to other parents too. I think that transparency and open, honest communication in all of these platforms is really crucial.
Sure.
Carrie, I wonder too, because we've got so many school teachers, right, educators out there, and I know that you see and hear a lot when it comes to the education setting, and teens can kind of blur real hashtag IRL with their real life, with perhaps they're probably so outdated, their online experiences. And I'm just wondering, like, how are educators approaching these conversations about online safety in classrooms? And do you have any tips on like what works and what could be a little counterproductive?
Sure, thank you. Technology definitely helps teens find that freedom that they're craving to, express themselves, be creative. I mean, man, if I had the amount of creativity that I see from the teens and the kids on this app, I think I would be a millionaire by now, or at least I hope I would be. And something that I think is really interesting and just empowering for me is seeing them mobilize around issues and learn about issues and share their opinions about things that really matter to them. But I mean, let's be honest, as I'm a mom of a teenager, and there is a downside that parents talk about and teachers talk about, and that happens with anything that's new. I mean, I'm from the era where AOL and instant messaging was first coming out, and my parents didn't feel equipped to talk about those things yet. They didn't understand it or use it or know it. And it was so, it was tumultuous time to try to explain, why am I using it? And we didn't really have open discussions. And so, I mean, of course, the downside could be, the need to feel constantly on, projections of perfection. I mean, and I think these aren't unique to children, right? I mean, I think that that's something that anyone can, at any age can understand. And then, the misinformation of what's real and what's not real. Of course, like you mentioned, the in real life is IRL is a definite concern of parents, and I'm sure for teachers as well. But I think the important thing to think about, at least that how I approach it, is that sometimes when conversations are hard with our teens, after a long day of work, after a long day of school for them, the last thing you probably want to do is have a very deep conversation about what's going on in their life online, and they might not always want to open up to you. So what it creates is this cycle of not talking about stuff. And I understand that definitely as a parent of a teenager, but it's important to remember that not talking about it is really the counterproductive piece of it. It's forcing yourself to be uncomfortable as the parent. And I've had many uncomfortable conversations that were uncomfortable for me, but at the end of it, I felt so much closer to my kids and understood them more. And I'm sure that's the same for educators as well. And so just being brave and hopefully finding the energy to have those conversations is really important, and creating those spaces, not in a reactionary way where they're about to receive a consequence, but more because it's proactive and light, and you're sharing, what you experience. So something I like to do, and I know that teachers support this too, is, talking about a time that you didn't know what to do online and saying, I wasn't sure what to do. So here's where I went, and here's what I did to learn more, and sharing that you're not perfect either, and you're learning together at the same time, I think is really, really a valuable piece to discussing this with your kids.
There's I have so many reactions, frankly, but think about, I try, my child's fairly young still, she's 6, and I try to think about the best practices that I learned as a scholar. I studied productive conversations, right? Like leveraging media for social development, like really fun stuff. And my specialty was teenagers, but I try to apply these philosophies with my young one too. And one thing that I think is pretty important, but I'd love to hear what you all think in respect to like approaching these complex topics, is I think it helps to give the why, right? Like, I'm not here to judge. I'm not going to bring fear. I'm not here to shut you down. I'm here to learn and understand. And I need you to know that my role is to protect and love you. And that's why I'm here right now, trying to talk to you. So I don't know, Carrie, again, I might kind of like throw it back over to you for a sec, but we have that saying, it takes a village. And I'm just wondering, like, how do you suggest we empower parents and educators? Like what resources or what tips do you typically provide for your communities?
Sure, thank you. Providing ongoing digital education to partners, caregivers, and teens, developing and supporting more proactive built-in safety features and protocols, but educating parents about where they are on the app and encouraging them to try that out. And then continuing to partner together, I think, is important, so that everyone is working together to meet kids where they're at and to really understand how to keep them safe and work together. Is really the value of these partnerships, is that we can help each other, and so we can help our kids. And then a great example of how National PTA is helping families is our Smart Talk tool, which was created 6 years ago in partnership with Norton LifeLock. And I've used it, and I still am going to use it as my kids are growing up, because it's not a one-time only tool. But a lot of parents are craving like a script of like, what do I say? When do I say it? What are the consequences I should do? And forget sometimes about including your child into that conversation. And so what I love about the Smart Talk tool was it helped me to understand that it's a contract, whether verbal or really on paper, where I'm sitting down and we're having a conversation about what's okay for our household and why, and then being able to answer those questions about why it might not be. But the tool helps walk you through those scenarios, and gives you some talking points to it. So you're not feeling like you're alone on an island parenting with the only one feeling, stressed and the weight of parenting. And so I really love that tool, and I encourage other parents and caregivers to look into that. And then this fall, we did a lot of market research with family on how to make the SMART tool more inclusive, accessible, and relevant, and just really useful for all families. And so it's gone a major overhaul, and the new version of the tool is actually coming out in March. So I encourage people to take a look at what it looks like now, and then come back in March to see what changes we've made and give us that feedback, so that we can continue to support everyone, and families and kids and teachers alike. It's so important to keep talking about it.
I'm gonna have to check out that Smart Talk tool. That sounds incredible. Piggybacking off of that somewhat, Carrie, that is the number one, maybe not the number one, but that is something we hear all the time at the lab is give me the words. They want a script. Parents want a script. And I think that's so incredibly important to give them. We have something at the lab that we've developed, and we have iterations every year coming out. Our next one is also coming out in March, which is great. And it's something called the Family Digital Wellness Guide. And in that guide, we actually have something called icebreakers. And they've been our most popular feature with parents. And it's literally, if you see this, say this. So, if you see something that's just stressing, we actually give parents or caregivers the words to say to help them address it. That is judgment-free. Tracy, as you said, not coming from a place of fear, which is so incredibly important. We talk a lot about that authoritative parenting style that's really high in warmth and high in love, and always reminding parents to make sure that they are, communicating the love that they have for their child, because we know that that's the place that they're coming from, but they need to make that very clear to their child as well. Because in the heat of the moment, if they see something, that can be hard to do. So making sure that they take a beat too, before they communicate those things. But I think that's great that there's so many tools that can help empower parents, in just giving them the words, or caregivers or guardians, whoever is in that situation, teachers as well. I think that's so critical and so important, especially in having these conversations.
And I'll jump in real quick too. The more natural you can make it, the more the more they will open up to you as well too. Like you said, don't force it. Don't force it on them. Keep it light, keep it open, keep it I mean, we laugh in hard conversations a lot. I tell funny stories about myself, to tell, hey, I've been there, done this, and relate to them. The more you relate to them and make it light, keep it light and judgment free as much as you possibly can, because don't close them up, because when you start closing them up, you'll lose them. So
Billy, do you have like a family plan? Do you have like family talk night, or like do you check in regularly? How do you start these? How did you make it so normal and comfortable?
It's so I guess I've just kind of always been. It's really weird because I'm an only child. Talks with my parents were non-existent. I mean, they really were. They were non-existent. They were awkward. And I knew that's not just, I didn't want to be like the awkward, so I've always just had that openness. And when I we'll call a family meeting. I'll call it a family meeting. And everybody, they know it's light. They know nobody's they know it's not going to be hard, bad, anything like that. So yeah, I mean, even, if we go see a movie and we're coming back from the movie theater and something happened in that movie that, hey, we probably, some scene that happened, it'll trigger something for us. We'll start that open dialogue right then and there. And those are good way, don't avoid those as parents. I know a lot, they, push the pause button, or fat, sometimes those are good learning tools to start the conversation. Just the way it is now, it's like, oh, here it is right in front of us. Hey, let's get this on the table right now. So, and like I said, if you can keep it light and keep that open, just, I say fun atmosphere. I mean, it's kind of weird to say, but it really is. I mean, it's kind of, like I said, that makes it more so open that they will open up with you. And the more they stay open with you, and be inquisitive, if they like you said it a while ago, you said something about let them teach you social media, let them show you things. The more you let them show you stuff and teach you things and help you learn things, y'all will start forming a bond, a relationship, and things will come really easy.
Everything he's saying makes me think of the concept of psychological trust, and how it's just like in any relationship, but the parent, child, teacher, student relationships, that trust is the ticket. Billy, hilariously, I forgot to turn off my notifications before this webinar, and I've got multiple teacher friends in the audience chatting me. I love Billy. They think very smart and have some good tips here. So okay. So Kristelle, I do want to ask you specifically, and I know you touched on this a little bit a few moments ago, but I'm curious to know what you think about what are platforms like TikTok doing really well? And then what would you recommend or want these platforms to focus more on?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think every time I go to a platform safety center, I am always really amazed and heartened by the content that they have there. It's usually really quality content, and they know their platform the best. They know what the issues are, and they usually have content that's on there to address it. Something that I would love to see, and I feel like my answer was it's a little bit stymied by that video that you showed us, Tracy, at the end, where you had a content creator actually talking about some of the issues and what to do and explaining it in a way that was fun and engaging and gave that language. I love that you touched upon this point too, but she said the word dangerous, which is so important. She used the right language and she was really funny. Like I was laughing while that video was playing. And I would love to see more platforms do that. So where all of this quality content that's amazing doesn't just exist in a safety center, because we know that usually when people go to the safety center, it's because something's wrong. So how great is it if they just see that content to prevent that wrong thing from happening so that they never have to go to the safety center? And the more that, kind of going off of what Billy said about being fun, keeping it lighthearted, it doesn't have to be a scary, awful thing. We can do preventative things in ways that actually reach teens, reach their parents, that are engaging and that they will want to internalize as well, because they're realizing that messaging is actually quality. It's meeting them where they are. It's communicating in a language that they understand, and that they understand will be of benefit to them using these platforms. So I think it's really just getting more of that content out there, really integrating it and making sure that it's reaching the folks where they're at. So whether that's a parent, whether that's a teen, making sure that messaging is tailored to them.
And if I can add that I know for me, when I first was dealing with my oldest as she's emerging into technology, I really craved, because I thought it was the right thing to do, was I wanted a black and white, this is exactly what you do. This is exactly how much screen time they should have down to the minute. And what I'm learning from being the ambassador and hearing from the experts is that you really know your kids the best. And there's no one who knows them better. And so it's important to remember that every household is different. Every child is different. And that's part of why it's important to have a discussion about it. What's okay for you, and talking to your child's teacher about what are you doing in the classroom? How can I help support that at home? And being open to that is just so important, because it's so easy to say, X amount of screen time is okay, but then what kind of content and screen time are we talking about, right? And so there's so many layers to it that every family situation is different. And then that's okay. I think that's great, because it facilitates that conversation. And then we can keep learning from each other. So I think it's a good thing.
Brilliant. That was beautifully said. It's like, know the rules, right? Know the community guidelines, know the rules of the game. Know the tools that you have at your disposal, have good, clear conversations, and figure out what is best for your unique family. We only have a few minutes left, and I'm sure that we have some questions from the audience. So I'm wondering if I should throw this over to the Q&A opportunity.
Thanks, Tracy. I encourage everyone to drop in any questions that you might have into the chat box, and we will try to get to as many as possible with the few minutes we have left. Tracy, maybe you can kick us off here with our first question. Could you speak to the interaction between an adolescent brain and the algorithms that drive TikTok recommendations? This seems to be an area where TikTok could stand to make a shift that makes the AI more humane, being that kids don't have the frontal lobe development to assess the content and walk away from a potential rabbit hole.
Thank you so much. I think it's a really important question, and I'll answer, and then I might throw it over to Kristelle to see if she can follow up with any more context. TikTok employs child development experts like myself, and we also consult with external experts like Kristelle, folks at the Digital Wellness Lab, and others, and we do design with developmental appropriateness foremost in mind. That's why we think of teens in different phases, just like psychologists do. There's different phases of adolescence, and TikTok has our early teens and our late teens, and we do bake in safety features and safety settings where we're a little bit more guarded and safe and have more safety feature defaults for the younger teens, and then have those guardrails slowly come off for the older teens. And we have ongoing conversations with psychologists and child experts, media specialists, in order to always learn evolve and improve, and we will continue to keep growing and learning.
Thanks, Tracy. Carrie, maybe you can take the next one here. How can educators get parents that aren't as involved with PTA on board? I think with the pandemic, parents are overwhelmed and would love to know how to support the school as a whole, as a family.
It's a great question. And I think if I'm going to shamelessly plug, I think that I know I'm overwhelmed and exhausted, and I'm sure that the teachers and administrators are as well. I know that this pandemic has been hard on everyone in a lot of different ways. And so as a lot of our resources, most of them, especially around digital safety in our programs, you don't have to be a PTA member or a local PTA president to get access to those resources. I mean, because that's the most important thing, is sharing this information out there. So if you head over to, here's the shameless plug, pta.org/connected, there are self-paced programs and recordings with worksheets and things that you can print out and do at home, where you don't have to be that PTA president leader. It's made for you to absorb when you have time, because let's be honest, sometimes bedtime at 7 o'clock at night is a hard time to watch a webinar. And so sometimes it's nice to be able to do it when you have time to do that. And so there are so many ways to utilize our resources with your teachers and sharing that information, or sharing, if you're an educator, sharing that information with your local PTA. If there's something that you really love that you saw on the website, getting that conversation started or sending that to families. I think that just helps those conversations at home and gives parents a place to start.
Thanks, Carrie. I think we've got time for just one more, and quick reminder, we will follow up with a great toolkit of resources that cover everything we've talked about here today in case you've missed anything. But Tracy, we've got a question here about the teens that are so savvy and often get around our age gate. Can you talk a little bit about how we detect and remove underage users?
Sure. So our age gate, TikTok is an app for those who are 13 and older. And our age gate is designed to be quite neutral, which means that when you sign up for an account, you enter your birth date, and it doesn't prompt you or indicate in any way what might be too young. If the account holder indicates that they're under the age of 13, we direct them straight over to what we call TikTok for younger users, which is a walled garden experience where they can only view content. And for those teens who are over the age of 13 or 13 or older, of course, they go into TikTok proper. And I'd love to just say for a moment that earlier we talked about, like, it takes a village, and I do want to implore upon families that we rely on you to help us help keep teens safe on TikTok. So if you have a young person in your family with a TikTok account, please check and make sure that they have the correct birth date entered for their accounts. For those teens, or for those account holders on TikTok, we do have ways in which we've taught our moderators. Our moderators are trained to look for cues to see, is there any clue or hint that perhaps this person is underage? Sometimes people will share directly that they're celebrating a birthday that's a little young, or they'll state their age in other ways. Those are ways that the moderators are taught to look for this. And then we also rely on in-app reporting, where if you see or suspect that someone is underage, you can report that account within the app. It's anonymous. Nobody will know it was you telling on them, but then that account will go over for an extra review.
Thanks, Tracy. That seems to be it and the questions. So I'll pass it back to you.
All right, everyone. Well, this was really such a wonderful treat. It was such a pleasure to be able to speak with you and to learn from you. We appreciate the time, and appreciate everyone in the audience who's listening.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.